Before we jump into today's episode, I want to reach out to you if you've been drowning trying to help your child with anxiety or OCD, or feel like no one gets your struggles, or you would love to know evidence-based home approaches to help your child, teen, or young adult. And if that is you, you're going to want to hear this. The AT Parenting community is open just until this Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. That's midnight Eastern. And inside the community, we offer a group of compassionate, helpful, and caring parents. And we also offer evidence-based, clinically sound approaches to help kids, teens, and young adults. And you get access to over $500 worth of my courses, weekly live Zoom classes, and monthly support group calls, not just for you, but we have them for kids and teens as well. Plus, you're able to message me and other members directly in our app to get guidance and support. Join us at atparentingcommunity.com. Doors close this Thursday. Okay, now back to today's episode.
Welcome to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast, where you get help and guidance through the chaos of parenting a child with anxiety or OCD. This show is for educational purposes and is not intended to replace the guidance of a qualified professional. Here's your host, child therapist, Natasha Daniels.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about support. How much support do you have? Do you need to tap into other areas of support? Are you trying to white knuckle this and help your child with OCD and anxiety alone? And what does helpful versus not helpful support look like? We can all relate to that. But before we dive in, I do want to thank NoCD for sponsoring this episode. NoCD offers affordable, effective, convenient therapy, and they're available in the US and outside the US. And you can schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if NoCD is a right fit for you and your child. Just go to treatmyocd.com. That's treatmyocd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. That's support right there. Actually, a lot of people are getting support from NoCD. And that has really changed the landscape for parents who are raising kids with OCD to get good evidence-based support. But that's not the only support. And I feel like sometimes parents think that support means a therapist. Full stop. Nothing after the period. And that's just the beginning. Yes, it is amazing to get a clinically sound OCD therapist in your corner. And those are hard to find. And that is why it's really helpful to have resources like NoCD so that we know they understand OCD in all of its different disguises and that they are well trained. But there is so much other support as well that is needed for parents. And it makes me so sad when I hear parents say, "Oh, we found a therapist, so I don't need any more support." You do need support. You listening to this need support, because raising a child with OCD and anxiety and ADHD and autism and social anxiety and emetophobia and misophonia and ARFID, whatever alphabet soup you're dealing with, because we're dealing with a lot of alphabet soup over here, that's a lot. I don't know about you, but I didn't sign up for this journey. I was a therapist before I birthed 3 kids with these issues. I know the irony is there. It's rampant in my family, so it's not that ironic, but I still had hopes that I wouldn't have to deal with this on a personal level. Oh, silly me. So it wasn't part of my vision of parenting. I had to pivot, and I'm in the thick of it, and I'm on a journey, and you're on a journey, and that journey is not your child's journey. Your child has their own journey. And that is separate from yours, because what you're experiencing, how you're trying to help your child, how you're trying to advocate for your child, how you're trying to stand up for them when no one else understands them, how you're trying to resist feeding the OCD demands day in and day out, how you're trying to show up for yourself in all your neglected relationships because you're focusing so much on this child who really needs you. That's your experience. That's your path. That's for you. And that requires support as well. Because if I was going to have a medically fragile child, there would be the medical issue and my child's experience with their diagnosis, and there would be my experience helping navigate that medical condition. And those are two completely different things, right? Think about it. If you're going to make a movie, you're doing it from someone's perspective. And so you do it from the child's perspective, that'd be one movie. But you do it from the parent's perspective, that's a totally different story. That's a different story altogether. And that is the story that you're living. You're living a story where you're the parent or caregiver of a child or children, in my case, and maybe in yours too, plural, who have mental health issues. And that has a very strong impact on you. So, are you doing this alone? Do you have too much pride? I know I have a lot of pride, and I would have to say, I used to have too much pride to accept support. Support was like a 4-letter word in my vocabulary, and it wasn't something I wanted because of maybe my past history with neglect as a child, that I felt like I cannot depend on anyone else but myself. And so support, I had a shaky relationship with support. And maybe you do too, for all sorts of reasons. Maybe you're embarrassed by what's going on. Maybe you are full of shame. Maybe you're full of anxiety and overwhelm. Maybe you have a lot of pride and you don't want, or maybe you have a lot of concern for privacy, or maybe your child has a lot of concern for privacy. And so you feel like, you know what? We're on our own here. But you do not have to do this alone. And so first, let's take a survey of how much you're doing on your own, how much support you have. Because I think sometimes people don't even realize the lack of support until they get support. And I've been like that in a lot of things, where I feel like I'm doing well until I realize I wasn't, or I feel like I have enough until I get more. Contrast is always really, really helpful. So I remember with my social anxiety, I thought my social anxiety I was doing so well until I actually got even better. Sometimes that happens with our kids too, where we think, wow, they're doing so good, and they do even better. And we think we're doing even better than that. So let's do a little survey. Do you have a place there's going to be a couple of these. Do you have a place to tap into other people's accumulated experiences? The hive brain, where people have been through or going through similar things to you, and they have their own experiences. And that gets magnified when you tap into their experiences. Do you have a community where you can just tap into everybody's experiences raising children with anxiety and OCD? Do you have a place where people can validate your struggles, not because they're sympathetic, but because they've been there? There is a difference. I don't know about you, but when I'm going through something and somebody is sympathetic, it rubs against my pride. It makes me feel embarrassed. And this might just be a me thing, but I'm sure there's some of you out there who can resonate with this. I don't want sympathy. I have so much pride, and I pride myself on my resilience. And I think this comes from deep, deep into my childhood. So when someone is sympathetic, I'm so sorry that your kids are like that. Or gosh, that must be so hard for you to have a child that can't do X, Y, and Z. It makes me feel worse. When someone is empathetic because they've been there themselves, that does something different for me. That helps validate my struggles. It helps me feel normalized. It makes me feel hopeful because I feel like I'm not alone. So do you have people to validate your struggles because they have been there, done that? All right, that's the second one. I've got 5 of these. The third one is, do you have a place on tap where you can just get really helpful, evidence-based, clinically sound anxiety and OCD resources? There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of noise about what works and what doesn't work, but in the OCD world, it's very clear. It's very clear because there's a lot of evidence and research on what works and what currently does not work. And so it's not a debate. There are other issues out there like depression and ADHD and autism, where there could be debates about what approach works, what's effective, what's not effective. It might depend. But OCD is actually very clear because it's a very distinct disorder with very distinct evidence-based approaches based on research. And so, do you have a place where you can tap into evidence-based research, a place where everybody knows what is the latest and greatest in OCD therapy approaches? Okay, that was the third one. Fourth one, do you have a safe place to vent? Do you have people and an environment where you can go and vent and not feel judged? That's really helpful. It's really helpful to have some people in your corner where you can say, I'm just not liking my kid today. I love them, but I don't like them today. This is hard. I've been up for, all night on a cycle of doing their compulsions, and I feel resentful and I feel angry. And when you're venting to that person or those people, that one, they get it. And two, there's no judgment. They know where your heart is. They know where you are, and they hold space for you. That's important. And that's hard to find. All right, that was 4. And the final one I want to ask you about is, do you have a place for your child to feel those things? Do you have a place for your child, teen, or young adult to feel supported, to feel like they are around other people who have similar struggles, to validate their struggles, to normalize their struggles, and for those people to have accumulated experiences on how they crush their anxiety and OCD and they share it with your child? That's gold. Because my children tend to listen to other kids more than they listen to me. We're at that stage. I've got a 14 and 16-year-old, and I don't hold as much weight as I used to with them. That's normal. That's developmentally appropriate. But when another kid or even their older sister tells them something, it's like they're hearing it for the first time, which is a bit annoying. I'll tell you that. But it's okay, because as long as they're hearing the message, that's all I want. And do you have that for your child, teen, or young adult around their OCD? All right, let's break this back down. So when we are tapping into people's accumulated experiences, it's like a shortcut. It kind of reminds me of, this is totally unrelated, but it reminds me of, I have a friend who is a teen coach, and I love her and I'm mentoring her. And she's actually a teen coach for a program that my son attends. And so that's been so helpful. But she's coming into the online space and she's learning. She doesn't understand, how to navigate all of this. How do you create a course? How do you create, a presence online? How do you create resources for people? All the stuff. Well, I've been doing this for 10 years. I started this in 2015. And I'm teaching her, and she is tapping into my experience, my 10 years of experience. And she is probably shaving off at least 3 or 4 years of my blood, sweat, and tears in Googling and YouTubing and taking all these other courses to learn how to make these things. And she doesn't need to do that because I can walk her through it really fast. I could tell her what worked, what didn't work. Don't do this, do this. If I could start all over again, I'd do that. And you can have that for OCD. You don't have to start at the beginning. And even if you are not in the beginning of this, you can speed along and you can get that accumulated, hundreds and hundreds of years of experience if you're tapping into 1,000 parents. And it can save you time and money. You can learn what therapies didn't work, what medicine didn't work. Obviously, consult your local psychiatrist for guidance, but it's helpful to hear other parents tell you, oh, that happened to us, or, oh, we are doing this thing, and that's really helpful, right? I mean, you take everything with a grain of salt, but that saves a lot of time. And so tapping into people's accumulated experiences is a time saver. Often I will hear parents say, I don't have time for the resources that I provide. And I always feel like I wish I could sometimes talk to those people. Sometimes it's an anonymous feedback that I don't have time for your AT parenting community, or I don't have time for your resources. And I think, it takes a lot of time? Dealing with untreated OCD in your home. it takes a lot of time, is not knowing how to approach OCD as it's growing and ballooning out of control. Or it takes a lot of time when I'm dysregulated and emotional and exhausted and fatigued and I'm not sleeping and I can't eat. That takes a lot of time. And so when you spend the time tapping into the right resources and getting the right support and getting the right help, you save time. But for some reason, sometimes parents can't see it that way. They think of things in very black and white, in black and white ways. I need to get my child into therapy, check, check, check. And moving on to the next thing. I don't have time to tap into resources. I don't have time to take a class. I don't have time to meet other parents who are dealing with this. I'm on a hamster wheel. I need to get going. But you know what? That hamster wheel isn't going anywhere and it's going to exhaust you. So taking the time and energy to learn how to effectively do things, to get the support and do the self-care of connecting with other parents saves you time. So when you have people to validate your struggles, that goes a long way as well. Over Christmas, I was really disappointed. And I shared this with my AT parenting community. This is my member community that provides all of this, by the way. And we do a challenge and win on Fridays. And I was telling them that my challenge was I knew Christmas was going to be not perfect. And I was trying to prepare myself and say, look, Christmas isn't going to be perfect. Let's just find those perfect or imperfectly perfect moments and let's just soak those up. Don't get upset if everything doesn't go as planned. And I had that mindset coming in, but then, my son was he was nauseous because he's got restrictive eating and ARFID, which for those of you that are new to this world, it's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And so he was already starting off on the wrong foot. And then, he's on the spectrum and he doesn't have a filter. So he's telling me that he doesn't like the gifts I got him, which really upset me. And over time, I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I kind of lost it for a little while, probably about 4 hours into it. And then I regrouped and then I was pretty zen again. But I was venting in the challenge and win and I was talking about it. And all these parents were like, oh, I deal with that too. And this is what happened for our Christmas. Or yeah, they spent the entire Christmas in their bedroom. They had to open up their gifts the next day. Or someone was like, oh yeah, when we had family over, they couldn't come out of their room. And I felt this huge wave from my own community of validation and normalization. And even though as a therapist, of course, I hear these stories all the time, but just hearing other parents in the trenches echo back, yes, you know what? It sounds like you had moments of happiness or you're not alone. We struggle with that too. They didn't even leave their room. It really made me feel heard and seen in my own community. And then I didn't feel as stressed because I was like, I'm not alone. People are dealing with this. Because there's also an embarrassment, I feel that comes with these struggles. I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure I put on myself to fix it. And I think partly that's professional because this is what I do for a living. And then also as a parent. And I feel like a lot of us put pressure on ourselves that we own this problem. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like often, and this is a mindset that I'm trying to shift, I'll feel like this is a problem that I need to fix. And when it's not fixed, when things don't go well, like that Christmas morning, it's something I did wrong. Instead of moving into acceptance of this is what Christmas looks like when you have kids with mental health issues. And this is what Christmas looks like when you have a child who is dysregulated and is nauseous and is worried about throwing up and is overwhelmed and is, overstimulated. This is what it looks like. And it's not your fault that it looks like this. And there's nothing you can do to fix it. That's healing. So often we're looking for answers. We're looking for solutions. We're looking for the cure. And just as important is the acceptance, is the grief, is the validation, is moving at their pace, is recognizing this isn't your journey and accepting that you're not going to be able to move the dial some of the time and that that's okay. And there are sparkles in life. Somebody at once asked, why do you always say that at the end of your podcast? Don't forget to find the sparkle in everything you do. What does that mean? And it's just what I just said. It's like life can throw you a bunch of lemons, but can you find a little bit of that lemonade? Can you find a sparkle? You can have a really rough day, but there's your dog sat in your lap and she was so cute and you kissed her for a minute. There's a little sparkle. Or your child looked up for a second and said, "Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate it." It's a sparkle, right? Sparkles don't last forever. They don't glimmer in your sky forever. That's why they're cool, because when you see them, it's like a little sparkle, a little flash, a little beauty in your day. And if we can find those beautiful things throughout our rough path, we start to enjoy ourselves more and we start to even appreciate our kids more. Not for their anxiety and OCD, but we appreciate the things that aren't that. Because sometimes we are blind and we don't see anything beyond anxiety and OCD because we see just a problem to fix. And I am 100% guilty of that. And so it's a daily practice for me to move into acceptance of what is. It doesn't mean that you give up getting resources and connecting your child and trying to get them help and hope. But there's also this quality of life shift when you recognize that you are only one part of this journey. And you learn that when you're surrounded by other parents who are dealing with similar situations. You learn that when other people validate the struggle. For me, this is going to sound maybe horrible, but you'll tell me. It's helpful for me to hear people who are in worse situations than me. It's also helpful to hear the wins, for sure. And it's different for each parent. Some parents, they go into the AT parenting community and they don't want to hear all these other parents talking about how hard and how extreme their child's OCD is. And then there's parents who are doing really well and they come into the community and all of a sudden I connect them with a therapist in their area. They're taking my course. The skills are popping. And within 3 or 4 months, they're like, their whole life is in a better place. And their child is doing so much better. For me, the contrast is helpful. I like both because I like to know that we're doing pretty good. It could be worse. That for me, and that's unique to me. You may not be like this, but for me, it is a double-edged sword, I should say, because then it's kind of like, I know it could get really, really bad, but it also helps me see, wow, we're like halfway up the mountain. We're not at the bottom of the mountain. We're not as bad as some other people. And so I have gratitude. I have gratitude that my child can communicate with me, or I have gratitude that my child can do X, Y, and Z, because I know that there's some people who can't. So sometimes that contrast of someone doing really, really well, that helps too. I know that kids can do well because I'm a therapist, so I don't really need that. But I know a lot of members in the AT parenting community will say, it's so good to hear all the victories. It's so good to see all these people doing really well because it gives me hope. And so when you surround yourself with people at different stages of this journey, that gives you perspective either way. That can be really helpful. It's time we put help directly in our kids' hands. Introducing Crushing OCD course for kids and teens.
It was way more helpful than all the other therapy we've ever done because we didn't really know what to do. So we weren't really doing it before. So the course helped to figure out what the exposures are and how to do them.
We're not in therapy and find it really hard to find an ERP trained therapist here. So we're currently with the public health service, but again, they don't seem to be trained in ERP. It's filled that gap that we don't have that was desperately needed.
This was really well timed for us to use between therapists and to help us get off to a good start with this new practice.
It was easy to use. I was able to do it from my phone or also on the computer.
There's different ages, so there were younger kids, there were teenagers, and so that was really nice too, to have a variety of ages where it wasn't just geared towards younger kids or older kids. It was a nice variety.
It's helpful for our kids to hear it from this third party as opposed to just us saying it.
I really like the offense and defense method. I love working on poking at OCD while it's sleeping. It makes it a little bit easier to do, and it's kind of fun. I'm planning on using it to work on my fear of holding or touching batteries and stuff like that.
So it was really helpful, and I think a lot of other kids would like it. I thought that I was the only one who had worrying about the weather and stuff. And then there was somebody else on there who worried about the same thing, which was really helpful.
Seems less scary to work on stuff now that I've watched this class, and I'm more interested to work on it.
I like trying to do more exposures still, and before I wasn't, I just didn't want to do them.
I've worked on some of my bigger compulsions and been successful.
I realized that it was helpful to do like the exposures. Before it was like really, really hard. It's still hard, but it's helpful to know that I need to do them.
Before there would be a lot of battles about it, so it is definitely less loggerheads.
Really, really good course and super helpful.
Definitely would recommend this. It's really easy to follow. It's nice bite-sized videos. I really like the worksheets that go along with it, and I think it's really helpful.
To learn more about this course and register your child or teen, go to atparentingsurvivalschool.com. In the AT parenting community, there are so many resources that are evidence-based, so you don't have to question every little thing that you're getting or that you're hearing, because you know it's been vetted by a child OCD therapist. I stay up on the research. I go to the conferences. I listen to what is new coming out in the world, and I connect you with not only my resources, but the resources of other people in the community, people that are well known in the community and that are respected. I bring in guest speakers to talk about their specialty. So we've had people come into the AT parenting community about body-focused repetitive behaviors, picking and pulling their skin. That's a common co-occurring condition. We had a parent and advocate come in and talk about autism and OCD. We've had not parents, I don't know why I keep saying that. She was a parent, but we've had specialists come in and talk about eating issues. We've had all sorts of different guest speakers come in because, if I'm vetting them and they're coming into my community, I trust them and I trust what they're saying. And so that can be really helpful. And connecting your child to other kids and teens that are in a similar situation is probably the most healing thing that we can offer our kids. I would beg and I would argue, and some people may disagree, I think that's even more therapeutic than therapy. You never want to replace therapy. Therapy is something that we want our kids to do. We want them to engage in. My kids are in therapy. I am a big fan. I am a therapist. But I have seen support groups move the dial like no other, because there is something powerful about having 20 or 30 kids on a screen on Zoom, all validating and echoing what your issue is. The coolest thing is in the AT parenting community, we have a kid support group call once a month on Zoom, and we have a teen support group call, and we have a parent one as well. And when we have a new member, like a new kid join, and their video is on, because they can join without their video on or their audio on, they can literally just listen to it like a podcast. That's still therapeutic to know I'm hearing all these kids talk about things that I'm dealing with. And so there are different levels of participation. They can just listen to it and not even have their camera on, which is not as overwhelming. But the coolest thing is to see a kid, see their little square in their video, and hear other people starting to talk about something. Maybe they're talking about moral OCD or feeling like they're a bad person, or maybe they're talking about contamination OCD and not being able to touch certain things in their house, or maybe people are contaminated. They're talking about that. We've had all sorts of themes, and to see that child's eyes grow wide and raise their hand or unmute and just be like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've ever heard anyone else say that they have this issue. And then to watch the chat blow up and kids are like, I have that too. I have that too. I have that too. That is so powerful. And then on top of that validation, the kids, because we have been doing this for 6 years, there are a lot of kids in that group who have they've been in lots of therapy, or their parents have soaked up my courses and they've learned really good clinical skills to crush their OCD. They give advice to the kids that don't have those skills. And to hear it from another child, for another child to say, having your parent do that is actually just growing your OCD. Or, I often ask for reassurance too, but I've told my mom not to answer it because I know it's growing my OCD. Or even giving practical advice like, yeah, my hands get really raw too because I wash my hands so much. and I use this type of cream and it really helps. It's so powerful to have another kid tell you how to do something. And then to have a therapist, because I moderate them, make sure that it's clinically sound. And so that is the gift of the AT parenting community. And that is what the AT parenting community offers you, is it fills in the lack of support. That has been my goal since I created it back in 2019, is to make sure that everybody in that space, in my community, has every possible thing they can have to support them. Now, I don't have a magic wand and I can't wand away your child's OCD. I wish I could. But what I can use my wand for is to make sure that you feel held, supported, validated, to know that you're surrounded by really loving, kind people, to make sure that you have evidence-based strategies and approaches at your fingertips, and to have you be able to talk to me through private chat or messaging when you need it. That's what I can offer, which is really helpful. And so the AT parenting community is open, and we close the doors every 3 months. We open them for 4 days, and then we close them, and then we open them again 3 months later, unless the wait list grows really big in between, and then we will do like a wait list opening just for the wait list. But we don't have a cap on how many members can come in, because sometimes members are like, I don't want to take up a spot. Things are going pretty well right now. And I feel like it is a really good thing to have that support in your pocket whenever you need it, because you never know when you're going to need the support. It's not like you're going to get a warning and say, things are about to get really rough on Tuesday. You might want to join again. It's good to have that support. It's like AAA for those of you that live in America. It's like good roadside assistance. Like, I need it when I need it, and I won't know when I need it. And so it's nice to have on tap. It's very affordable. It is the price of an insurance copay, which, if you're not in the United States, is a very small amount. I wanted to make it affordable for everybody. And actually, my copay has gone up. I don't know about your copays starting in 2026, but everything has gone up. It's kind of annoying. And so my copay used to be $30 a month. I mean, not a month, $30 for therapy, $30 for a doctor's appointment. I paid $30 no matter what. For those of you that are in Canada or the UK, you're like, oh my gosh, it is nice to be able to pick my providers and just pay a copay, but they've gone up. My copay is now $50 a month. It's so annoying. I have never raised the price of the AT parenting community since it started 6 years ago. I actually haven't raised my prices in anything, in my courses, in anything since I've started. And everything has gone up for me. Like all the platforms I use, all the tools I use, everything I'm paying to make sure this community happens has gone up, and I have not increased, because I want the community to be affordable. However, that's becoming a bridge too far. And so when we open up the doors next time, which is not this time, the price will go up. And so currently the member price per month is $30 a month. And that's going to go up next time we do it. And so it's really great, if you're wanting support, to lock that in now, because as long as you're a member, that member price is the same. It'll stay the same no matter what. If you leave and then you come back, then you'll have to sign up again. But you lock in this current price of $30 a month. And in the community, we do a lot of different things. I jam-packed it full of resources, and it's not meant to be digested in one fell swoop. It's there for you when you need it in different ways. And so we do a live weekly class every Friday on Zoom. And so you can just join me. We also have a replay of that class. We have a transcript of that class. We have a private podcast feed of that class. And so even if you can never make any of our classes live, there are so many ways to digest this information. We have a library of hundreds of prior classes that you have access to. And then you get access to over $500 worth of my online courses: how to teach kids to crush OCD, how to teach kids to crush anxiety, how to pull back your enabling and accommodating of OCD in my space study guide course, how to handle difficult behavior caused by anxiety and OCD, how to deal with sensory anxiety, how to deal with moral OCD. These are all classes that you have inside the community. And if you are like, I am not looking to learn anything, I just want to connect. I just want to meet people, maybe in my area even, that are dealing with this, or maybe they have kids that my kids can meet. We have a huge community. And so we typically have over 1,000 members at any given time. People do really well and they leave. Then we get new people. Then old people come back sometimes for more support. We get a lot of people who come back, which says something really good about our community, in my opinion. To me, that's the biggest compliment, is that when people are in a crisis, they come back because they know this is a really supportive community. So sometimes people pause and they come back, but you tap into all of those people's accumulated experiences. And so we have gotten an app this year, or actually we're in 2026 now. So we got an app last year, and you can take the AT parenting community in your pocket. So you go onto our app and you can literally chat and message. There's kind of like a similar Facebook looking feed, but it's just for us. So you can look at the feed and you can create a post, you can comment on posts, you can ask members questions. There is a feed that's Ask Natasha questions. And so I did just implement business hours. I used to have zero boundaries and it started to exhaust me. When you're having over 1,000 people have direct access to you 24/7, that started to get pretty heavy for me. And I've got my own kids that are dealing with stuff. My son is going into treatment in 3 days for a PHP program. And so I was like, I need some boundaries and I want to be available, but most people don't work 24 hours a day, I realized. So you have access to me 9 to 5 Mountain Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And it's one of those things where you can leave a message and then you can read my message and my response when you're ready and when you have time. And so that's available. So there's a feed directly talking to me. And then there's a chat button where you can literally chat with me, ask me private questions that no one else can see. And you can search the app and see where other people are. It organizes it by how close people are to you. And so you can say, oh my gosh, there's somebody literally in my town who's on the app, who's a member of the AT parenting community, and they've got kids my age. I can go and have coffee or go out with this person. And so I'm going to message them and see if they want to hang out or see if they want to be a support person for each other. And so there's a lot of tools to be able to create your local support or even your virtual support within the community. The app allows that because you can see, depending on if you write this information or not, you can see their children's ages and their struggles. If you don't want to disclose that stuff, you don't have to write it on your profile. If you don't want people to know where you live, you can have an alias. You don't have to put your real name. There are definitely confidentiality built in, but I think it's super cool to be able to say, oh my gosh, this person has a kid my age. I'm going to message them. And it's right there in the app. Super easy. The courses are on the app. The live classes are on the app. And then the support group calls that we have for kids and teens. The links are right there. And then we have like a resource directory and all sorts of other stuff. But support's important. You're important. I was just reading, we were doing a challenge and win today because we do them on Fridays. And one of the moms said that one of her wins is that she realizes that she needs to put her oxygen mask on first and that she's starting to do that. And I love to hear that because I think we discount the impact this is having on our own mental and physical health and our own quality of life. And that's one thing I can say the community will do no matter what, is if you soak up everything and you allow people to support you, there's such an opportunity for you to feel more emotionally grounded, more present for your kids, more intentional with your approaches, and knowing that you have a plan. Because a lot of times we're just reactive. We're putting out fires. We have no plan. We have no grounding. We have no methodology. We have no intention. It's just reactive and dysregulated parenting. And the longer you're with the community, the less I see that, because you talk to me and I see it, and I see less emotional dysregulation. I see more calm. I see more knowledge. I see more intention. I see more acceptance, more processing of grief, and I see a better quality life unfolding no matter what happens with your child. A lot of kids do really well. They get connected to therapists or skills, or the parents start doing things on their own because you have access to how to teach kids to crush OCD. But no matter what, the parent's life can always improve because we only get to control one small sliver of the puzzle piece around our child's mental health. I know that's hard to stomach, but that's true. And we'll knock out that piece. We'll knock it out of the park. You'll have all the skills, all the resources, but what your child does with them, you can't control. We'll talk about it, how to motivate kids, how to empower them, all that. But you're still only one piece of the puzzle. You don't own that. You're just a component of that. But what you do own is your own mental and physical health. What you do own is your own quality of life. And that is something we can really double down on. Well, I hope that you join us in the AT parenting community. It is my favorite place in the world. And I'm not just saying that because it's my community, because it's not. There's 1,000 other parents in there who are supporting myself and 999 other parents. So you can join at atparentingcommunity.com. The doors do close on Thursday, and they do close because we really do like to focus on new members. And so it closes on January 22nd at, I'm not exactly sure what time. I'm trying to think. It will be 9 p.m. Pacific. That'll be 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so that is January 22nd. So that's in a couple of days if you're listening to this podcast in real time. And then we close the doors. And if you're listening to this outside of this time frame, you can put your name on the wait list at atparentingcommunity.com, atparentingcommunity.com. And we do open the doors every 3 months, and we often open it in between when we wait for the wait list to fill up. And once it gets really big, we don't want people to wait any longer. We'll open it up in between, but don't wait for your support. Join us, dive in, get that support. The reason why we do close it is because can you imagine how many questions I get when people are brand new? It's a lot. It's a lot for the whole community because people come in and they just want to soak it up. They want to know, do you know any therapists in this town? Do you know where I should start? What video should I show my child first? And everybody's asking me those questions. And so I need to carve out time in my space so that I'm not doing much but answering people's questions. And then members know, hey, we've got new people. Let's welcome them in. Let's show them around. And then we have a new member Zoom call. So our new member Zoom call will be on February 1st. That's a Sunday at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so we do that so that we can welcome in the new people. I can meet you on Zoom. I can talk to you, get to know your family, get to know your struggles if you're comfortable with that, and then show you how to navigate the community on that call. And we like to do that for new members. And that's why we open and close it so that we kind of have like a new group that I bring in. I start to know, oh, this person's going to be active, or, oh, I know a lot about that person already. Or remember, I met them on Zoom and now I'm meeting their child on their support group call. And I'm starting to connect the dots of that mom is connected to that child and that mom is messaging me. And now I remember her child in the support group call. And so I have a better picture of what that child's struggles are like. And the whole picture comes together and it's beautiful. So join us at atparentingcommunity.com. I look forward to meeting you on February 1st for our new member Zoom call. Don't forget to find the sparkle in everything you do.
Thank you for listening to the AT Parenting Survival Podcast. To get additional support raising a child with anxiety or OCD, visit Natasha's online school of on-demand classes at atparentingsurvivalschool.com.